Hello everyone and welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Sol and this video is to discuss every book I read in the month of January. Remember to like and subscribe for weekly bookish content. The first few books I'm going to talk about are in the same series. Earlier in the month of January, Holly Black released her first book of a new duology that is in the same universe as her Folk of the Air series. So I reread The Coal Prince, The Wicked King, The Queen of Nothing, and How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. To get myself reacquainted with the world before reading The Stolen Heir. Now, I was hoping to have finished The Stolen Heir before the end of this month, but for whatever reason, my mood reading self wouldn't pick up the book. I'm 86 pages in so far, and therefore I should be finished with this soon. If my mood reading self would actually pick this book up, because I'm enjoying it. It's not that I'm not enjoying it. It's just I'm like, no, I'll read it later. I still wanted to highlight the rest of the books in the series, even though they were rereads. But this is a little tease for February wrap-up video. Stolen Heir. Now getting on to actual books that I actually read in the month of January that are new. I read this book called Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan and Cecilda Jetha. I hope I said her name right. I got this book recommendation from the Instagram at Celeb Book Reads, which will be linked below in the description. This was on the post that had Taika Waititi's favorite books on it. And he's one of my favorite directors. And the name of the book was interesting enough, Sex at Dawn. Although the book is not as sexy as the title would suggest. Sex at Dawn looks at sex and relationship from a scientific, philosophical, psychological, and sociological point of view. The book goes through time from our hunter-gatherer ancestors to here and now, or the here and now of the 2010s, as that's when the book was published. It's one of those books that makes you want to do further research and have discussions with people, because it really does challenge some current beliefs on sex and relationships. I also really like the snapshot views of different places on Earth that look at sex way differently than it is thought of in the Western world or the global North. If you are someone that likes reading scientific texts or interesting topics like this, definitely pick it up. It was a very, very interesting read. The next book I read was actually referenced in Sex at Dawn, and that is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And the quote that was in Sex at Dawn was, "Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shore of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone, even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music." I read that quote and I was like, I need to investigate further. This book was released in 1923, and it's one of the most lyrical and beautifully written books I've ever read. It is a short book full of essays that discuss all aspects of life, from love, marriage, friendship, freedom, death, etc. There were moments when I finished a chapter and had to stop reading to think about what I just read. This is the kind of book that demands your full attention. Also, I can see this book being discussed in philosophy and religion, like university classes. It's kind of one of those types of books. This book is very short, but it is very impactful, and I'm still thinking about it now. Speaking of short but impactful books, I also read The History of Mary Prince by Mary Prince. This book follows Mary Prince, who spent most of her life as a slave in the Caribbean. This should be required reading in school here in the US. Currently in the US, we have states that are trying to ban books under the guise of not wanting to make white kids feel bad when learning about American history, especially since there are some schools that not only are trying to erase history, but rewrite it where things seem not to be as bad as they were. But just like the famous quote says, when you fail to learn your history, you are doomed to repeat it. This book was written in 1831 and was meant for white people in England to read and learn about what really was going on in the Caribbean, since slavery was abolished in England but not in the Caribbean at that time. If you bear with me, I'm actually going to read the last paragraph in this book to really get the point across from why it was written in the first place. I am often much vexed, and I feel great sorrow when I hear some people in this country say that the slaves do not need better usage and do not want to be free. They believe the foreign people, West Indians, who deceive them and say slaves are happy. I say, not so. How can slaves be happy when they have the halter around their neck and the whip upon their back, and are disgraced and thought no more than beast, and are separated from their mothers and husbands and children and sisters, just as cattle are sold and separated? Is it happiness for a driver in the field to take down his wife or sister or child and strip them and whip them in such a disgraceful manner? Women that have children exposed in the open field to shame. There is no modesty or decency shown by the owner to his slave. Men, women, and children are exposed alike. Since I've been here, I've often wondered how English people can go out into the West Indies and act in such a beastly manner. But when they go to the West Indies, they forget God and all feeling of shame. I think since they can see and do such things, they tie up slaves like hogs, moor them up like cattle, and they lick them, so as hogs or cattle or horses never were flogged. And yet they come home and say, and make some good people believe, that slaves don't want to get out of slavery. But they put a cloak about the truth. It is not so. As slaves want to be free is very sweet. I will say the truth to English people who may read this history, that my good friends, Miss S, who was the one jotting all the stuff down, by the way, is now writing down for me. I have been a slave myself. I know what slaves feel. I can tell by myself what other slaves feel and by what they have told me. The man that says slaves be quite happy in slavery, that they don't want to be free, that man is either ignorant or a lying person. I never heard a slave say so. I never heard a buckra, white man, say so, till I heard tell of it in England. Such people ought to be ashamed of themselves. They can't do without slaves, they say. What's the reason they can't do without slaves as well as in England? No slaves here, no whips, no stocks, no punishment, except for wicked people. They hire servants in England, and if they don't like them, they send them away. They can't lick them. Let them work ever so hard in England. They are far better off than slaves. If they get a bad master, they give warning and go hire to another. They have their liberty. That's just what we want. We don't mind hard work if we had proper treatment and proper wages like English servants, and proper time given in the week to keep us from breaking the Sabbath. But they won't give it. They will have work, 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 night and day, sick or well, till we are quite done up. And we must not speak up nor look amiss, however much we be abused. And then when we are quite done, who cares for us? More than a lame horse. This is slavery. I tell it to let English people know the truth, and I hope they will never leave off to pray God and call loud to the great King of England till all the poor blacks be given free and slavery done up forevermore. That is just so powerful and needs to be read by everyone. Like, honestly, pick up this book. It's very short. Um, those are the books I read in the month of January. Let me know what you read last month. Shame me for not finishing The Stolen Heir. I deserve it. Like always, let me know what you're currently reading because I love seeing that. See you next time.